Hey, what is up, mortals? I welcome to part 4 season 1 of What If Deku Was an All-for-One fan. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. Izuku eyed the other students attempting to enter UA, his competition. It'd be a lie if he saw them as anything more than pebbles, but his master had taught him never to underestimate your enemy no matter how weak they appear. All it'd take is one well-placed trump card and Izuku would be at a disadvantage. While no students here knew Izuku's powerful telekinetic quirk had a massive glaring flaw. If another individual held Izuku in any form, his quirk instantly became nullified. He trained hard over the weeks building up to this, trying to beat that flaw, that imperfection. But once more, as the villainous beacon of hope all for one was to Izuku, he parted some wisdom to him after bringing Monoma, now named Pentagonist in the villain world, and Kamakiri, who had taken the villain mantle of slaying mantis. Izuku knelt before all for one in person, trembling from excitement slightly, but now wasn't the time for an autograph. Meanwhile, the man Izuku had grown to know as Dr. Yujiko was tinkering with his support gear, adding some new feature to the claw pack, as he dubbed it. Midoriya had to admit if he kept things up, maybe he should request some tutoring from Yujinko in the various scientific fields to remain on top of his grades in class. You look like you've seen better days, Tactic Kill. Don't tell me you can't handle the training Vlad King and Powerloader are putting you through. I joke, of course. Kurogiri has been watching your training for myself and Tamura. We've noted you trying to restlessly beat your quirk's flaw, but you shouldn't train to beat what you can't remove. Every quirk has a weakness if you know where to look. Even mine and All Might's quirks have flaws, but I've stolen enough quirks to cover my weaknesses. So instead of seeking to purge yourself of the weakness entirely, only to face failure after failure, seek to find something that can cover your weakness. Thus why the good doctor is upgrading your claw pack. All for one smiled at Izuku almost like the father he wanted to have instead of that bastard that had turned his back on him and his mother after his quote-unquote episode all those years ago. Izuku's rage bubbled just thinking of his father and how he would rather die than stay under the same roof as a monster like Izuku or the mother who dared bring him into this world. Although Midoriya was proud that when his father married his mother they agreed to take Inko's name of Midoriya instead of Hisashi's name, which was Ricotta. Izuku watched as the hero present Mike was flanked by the underground hero Eraserhead standing near the podium. Great juice, great of all the heroes it had to be Eraserhead of all heroes. Izuku knew Eraserhead. He was the one of the rare heroes that Midoriya respected as much as he loathed him. Eraserhead was there to help oversee Izuku's psychiatric visits as the physiatrist wanted to build trust or some crap, so Izuku was allowed to be relieved of his quirk-canceling bracelets, but Eraserhead was always there to stop him if he used his quirk too much during sessions or attempted to try anything. Izuku listened closely as President Mike explained the written portion of the exam and announced for them to begin. Too easy. Midoriya began to work through the paper faster than most, not just thanks to his next to zealous amount of studying he did or his IQ, but thanks to his claw pack and masked helm's 180-degree vision. Both claws held their own pencils to answer questions for Izuku as he used his dominant hand to write with another. Mike spotted this and leaned towards Aizawa and managed to whisper, surprisingly, "Is he allowed to do that? I mean, it doesn't seem particularly fair." Aizawa just shrugged in response as he also eyed Izuku answering in such an unusual manner before turning his sight to another student wearing a scarf similar to his own. Tired, baggy eyes and equally unkempt hair. The only difference began hair color, with Aizawa being black and the student's being a dark purple. Soon enough, Aizawa whispered a reply to his colleague. "Since when has anything been fair at UA? Besides, he isn't cheating off anyone else, and it isn't against the rule to use your quirk or support gear to work on your own test, even if this is the first time seeing someone use their support gear." Aizawa sighed, looking back at Mike before returning his withering gaze to the rows of students, but was soon face to face with a completed paper being offered by Midori. Aizawa read it over 3 times, making certain he got this right before handing it to Mike, who read it for himself before looking dumbfounded and putting it into a machine, mouthing to Aizawa, "How the hell?" Soon everyone had handed in their tests, complete or not. Once time ran out, the 2 teachers stepped aside from the podium as a small mouse bear creature entered the room, Nezu. Someone whom Midoriya had to admit he envied in terms of his wits and intellect along with his slightly sadistic personality towards humans. Jumping up on Aizawa's shoulder, then the principal spoke softly into a microphone. He gave some boring speech about seeing many worthy heroes in the making there and to go beyond plus whatever, but then took a swig of tea from a cup he had brought with him. He then said something that caught Izuku off guard immensely. "Well then, with all that done, I'd first like to congratulate both Momoye Urazu and Izuku Midoriya for scoring 100% on the written exam. Now one small announcement for Izuku Midoriya. Due to your quirk, I'd like to offer you the option to enter a city joined by the top 10 scoring people in the written portion. Them being Momoye Urazu, Katsuki Bakugo, Tagaru Kamakiri, Itsuka Kendo, Shoto Todoroki, Minoru Mainta, Tenya Suyu Asui, Nito Monoma, and yourself. There will be slightly less robots in order to keep things fair for other examinees. Do you accept? Izuku looked at each of the people mentioned who had been asked to take a stand so Izuku could see them before nodding in agreement. The explanation of the practical went on without incident well until Tenya Ida stood up again, gesturing at the board and chopping his hand. So the board clearly shows 4 robots. You have only explained 3. If that is a mistake, it best be rectified immediately. I find it highly ill-fitting of such a prestigious school. Izuku and Aizawa simultaneously let out an exasperated sigh as Aizawa started to activate his quirk to deal with the interruption. His thunder was stolen by a metal claw shooting past Ida's head and grasping a piece of paper in its 5 clawed metal fingers from his desk, then lifting it in front of him. I didn't expect a relative of Ingenium to be so foolish. If you were to wait patiently for the good principal to finish explaining, he'd have finished explaining the 0-pointer and we'd all be getting ready for our practical exam by now. But if you were to use your eyes, you'd notice this handout elaborating on all 4 robots, which includes the 0-pointer. So if you had done either, you wouldn't have needed to interrupt our teachers, annoy most everyone here, and generally waste our time. I didn't give you the opportunity to shine in that special city made just for us in the top 10 for you to squander it. I apologize for the sudden outburst. Principal Nezu, sir, please forgive me. Slowly Ada sat down, nodding in quiet disbelief and embarrassment. The 3 faculty members were also a bit shocked, looking at the claw retract easily into Izuku's pack as he bowed, asking for forgiveness. Quickly Nezu wrapped everything up, explaining the 0-pointer in his own special way, which left many people either fearing it or eager to see what kind of big surprise it was, even if it wasn't worth anything and just an obstacle. During the brief bus ride to their mock city, the top 10 sat silently, eyeing each other nervously or distastefully in some cases. Izuku broke the silence by stating the obvious. They'd all get nowhere fast if they ran like headless chickens through the gate. They need to team up if they want to come out of the practical on top. Unbelievably, Bakugo actually agreed with the nerd's plan, even though he couldn't believe it himself. Soon they were exchanging quirk information, and in Izuku's case, support gear info too. Well, most of it anyway. They didn't need to know about Yujiko's new upgrade. It was his personal trump card if things got hairy. Then came strategies, attack patterns, grouping up in 2s and splitting off before all converging to the mock city's center. Unbeknownst to Izuku, he had more than one audience watching. Sure, he knew the heroes were watching, but one of his helmet's eyes had a built-in camera, and it was currently transmitting a heavily encrypted and nearly undetectable signal to the League, allowing all for one, Shigaraki, Dr. Yujiko, and Kurogiri to watch Izuku in action. Mid-roll, Skillshare. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. With the services Skillshare provides, you can get access to many in-depth tutorial videos on basically anything you want to learn. Each class that they have is bound to help you with your creative endeavors. Do you want to learn how to make videos like this one? Do you learn how to write scripts or edit audio? Skillshare has you covered. And with our link, you can have a 14-day free trial. So what are you waiting for? Click the link now and get 14 days worth of classes free. Link in description below. Remember the plan, guys. Cool. Remember, no countdowns in a real battle, so when you see that gate, move to get past it however you can, pair up and get to work. Everyone remembers their pair, right? Okay, good. Let's crush this test. With that, the gate moved slightly, hissing as the seal was opened. The 10 students charged the gate. Izuku used his telekinesis on himself to fly over it and land, using his claws to break his fall. Ida and Todoroki charged up an ice ramp over the gate, landing on a rooftop. Minda used a sticky ball to bounce his way over the gate, using a second ball to break his fall, copying Izuku's lead. Monoma followed Kamakiri as they both used the same quirk to slice a hole through the opening gate and running through it. Bakugo launched himself onto a roof using explosions, joined by Asui not far behind him, who simply jumped up. Yaoyorozu had created herself some roller skates prior to the gate opening and put them on, using them to dash in at a faster speed through the hole Monoma and Kamakiri made, followed by a sprinting Kendo. Getting into the pairs the group had planned on previously, they all dispersed and got to work. Bakugo was stuck with Kamakiri, although the two objected to this idea. Izuku managed to sway them by making a bet between them. Using their rivalry to bring out the best in them was too easy. Minda and Asui were paired together, something that made Asui a bit uneasy, but when Izuku explained she'd be helping get from roof to roof so they could both attack the bots from above, she gave in too. Kendo was paired with Monoma, which got no arguments as the two knew each other well enough and knew each other's fighting styles to a T. Next was Todoroki, and this too was a no-brainer and got no resistance after Izuku explained the plan to use Todoroki's ice to improve their mobility tenfold, leaving any bots they fought as sitting ducks, which finally left Izuku and Yaoyorozu, who would be able to make anything for Izuku to use as projectiles with his telekinesis, whilst Izuku gave the opportunity for the duo to use the rooftops when needed. This was truly a plan worthy of tactic kill. The heroes in League watched amazed by the plan of action and teamwork put together so quickly and perfectly, with the heroes in a room watching every feed carefully. Their attention couldn't help but always be drawn to the monitor marked Top 10. Nezu sat drinking his tea watching it, fascinated by the duos put together that complemented each other for this particular combat scenario, despite some of them having very contrasting personalities, petty rivalries, or being total strangers. He wondered if Izuku was anything like his mother and would like to engage in a game of chess, but then he had a horrible memory of a bet he lost and thought to himself a quick perhaps not. The other heroes in the room with Nezu were Eraserhead, Present Mike, All Might, Tenya's now mostly retired father, Midnight, Vlad King, Snipe, and Endeavor. They sat observing Bakugo and Kamakiri destroying bot after bot, counting how many they had destroyed and shooting jabs at each other back and forth, egging the other to work harder out of spite for the other. Asui jumped from roof to roof with a grinning Minta on her back, throwing balls and making traps which the bots got caught in, burning out their motors, or Asui would slam her tongue from above, pushing them into the traps. Todoroki created long ice slides through the streets as Ida slid behind him, causing some robots to slip and smash against the ground, while those that didn't slip were quickly kicked down into scrap by Ida. Monoma sliced through bot after bot, sometimes using explosions he borrowed from Bakugo or slapping away the bots with Kendo's quirk as she stood to his back, covering his blind spots and smashing or slapping any bots that came for them as they made their way to the center. As for Izuku and Yaoyorozu, they were working in surprising cohesion. Izuku would use javelins that Yaoyorozu made for him, launching volleys through the air at the waves of bots with his quirk, and soon Izuku figured out an idea. As the two reached a brief pause in the bots, Izuku turned to his partner. Yaoyorozu, make a rock for me. I have an idea. Nothing big, just a tiny rock about as big as my fist. I also need you to trust me on this. She nodded at him, creating the small rock like he asked, then looked at him quizzically, both wondering the idea that he had exactly and what he looked like under that weird 8-eyed helmet. Did he have 8 eyes too? She would find out later. First, the present. You can call me Momo if you find that easier, and please tell me what your idea is first before I go along with this. Izuku turned to her as the eyes on his helmet began moving around, and his eyes darted around the surroundings before landing upon a building as he lifted the rock with his quirk, chuckling through his voice changer. As he finished the sentence, he threw the rock at seemingly nothing. Then a 3-pointer rounded the corner from behind the building, and Izuku hit it smack in what is technically the head. Grabbing the bot's attention, he ran at it and grappled to its back, ripping its back plate off, all using his claw pack. Then he began ripping out wires and plugging them back into new locations, shutting the bot down before starting it back up into manual control mode. Putting the plate back on, leaving 2 wires poking out, he sat on the robot and patted the back. Your metallic weaponized carriage awaits. Pull that wire in the direction you want this thing to move, and that one in the direction you want it to shoot. Smirking at the sheer nonsense of this and yet it working, Momo climbed up onto the bot and took the reins. Off the two went, blasting bots with the 3-pointer's weaponry and Izuku's telekinesis until the duo met up with the others at the center of the city. Nezu was shaking with excitement as he personally pressed a few buttons, directing all remaining bots in that city to encircle and attack their position before slamming his paw down on a red button marked Nezu's button do not touch, unleashing the 0-pointers into the multiple mock cities. Everyone watched eagerly as the bots encircled their position but were caught off guard by ice walls blocking off every street but 2, leaving the main street as a bottleneck. 5 of them focused on the north while the other 5 focused on the south. As they shredded through the waves of robotic assailants, there was a massive rumbling through the city from the north and south. The teachers all looked at Nezu with looks of disbelief. Aizawa spoke up. Nezu, tell me you didn't do what we all think you did to their city, even by my standards. That's a bit much for the entrance exam, and there's only 10 of them. Nezu looked at Aizawa, innocently sipping tea before lowering it and looking at him with a grin. Then I won't tell you I modified their city to have 2 0-pointers. Besides, you should all have a little more faith. You saw their group cohesion, and we have the sons of 3 heroes in there. The 2 0-pointers towered over the teens, their red eyes glowing menacingly. As they advanced on their position, followed by scores of bots, the 0-pointer to the north smashed through a massive ice wall Todoroki had made to try and keep it at bay. As the ice crashed down onto Momo, Izuku shouted out orders to his impromptu team. Bakugo, Kendo, Kamakiri, Todoroki, keep the bots off us and ignore the 0-pointers. Monoma, Asui, mine to keep to the rooftops and perform hit and run attacks as mine delays traps for any more incoming bots. Ada, be ready to get Momo out of there when the ice is off her. Once she's clear, all of you make a run for it. Midoriya shouted loudly. Bakugo begrudgingly did as told, and the others followed, making sure they wouldn't have to stop him attacking the 0-pointers, leaving them with 2 teammates to save. But fortunately, common sense won out in the end. Izuku lifted the ice away from Momo as Ida went to grab her and carry her to safety following the others' retreat, but he turned back and stopped. The others looked at Ida's face of awe and then shared it as they watched what he was looking at. Izuku flew in the air, laughing with glee as all robots in the area floated up and began to get launched at the southern 0-pointer, eventually causing it to explode from the multiple high-velocity impacts. A giant metal hand reached out to grasp Midoriya from behind only to grab nothing as Izuku darted out of the way. Midoriya slowly floated towards the Zero-Pointer's head as a metal claw reached out touching its head. Then his claw pack buzzed. Immediately the Zero-Pointer's head became encased in ice. Slowly the claw returned to its slot and a small empty canister shot out of Izuku's claw pack. Hissing, Izuku then raised his hands and strained as the Zero-Pointer began to lift off the ground before starting to creak from the pressure until finally the giant machine was shredded into hundreds of tiny cubes of compact scrap metal, which Izuku used to bombard incoming robots that had just arrived or he missed earlier when using them as ammo against one of the Zero-Pointers. All but 3 individuals stood in awe of Izuku's display. The 3 who remained calm and collected in the face of this power were all for one, Nezu and Izuku himself. Like soon announced the exams were now over. No doubt about it now. That boy is definitely Inko's son. But I think he beat your record, All Might. I can't even be ashamed that my Shoto didn't score as much as him. Endeavor looked at the boy with interest whilst keeping his classic frown, likely from his son throwing his recommendation in his face and demanding to take the entrance exam to prove he's worthy or something. Endeavor couldn't care less for his childish antics for he had no time for them. Nezu, I want him in my CL. Aizawa was cut off by Vlad King patting his shoulder and shaking his head with a massive grin that just screamed screw you. Not gonna happen, Shota. You made me teach that kid how to fight in unarmed combat. And I did not put that effort into training him just for you to call dibs. Besides, I already asked Nezu to have this kid join my class when he got in. I asked him to show off his quirk a bit before we trained, so I had a rough guess how strong he was, guessing he was holding back on me. Aizawa tutted at Vlad and walked towards the door leaving the room, but after getting a text on his phone his face seemed to brighten slightly. Meanwhile, All Might stood in the corner of the room looking at the recording of Izuku's pack using someone else's quirk. He'd be lying if he said he didn't feel a bit of dread watching the enjoyment as the boy unleashed carnage upon the robotic foes. But what worried him most was he only felt dread like this before when he was face to face with one other man. A man he swore on his mentor's grave he would destroy and make sure he couldn't come back. No prison could contain him forever after all. Outro. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We The Celestials has got you covered. Are We The Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Secondly, on behalf of We The Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We The Celestials, then I'd like to extend you an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being that we only accept members from 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching and have a great day.